And welcome back to our weekly interview segment for Around the Base with Bubba and Mo. Mo and I are going to talk some Dodgers baseball. We've been wanting to talk about this for a little while, so we have a special guest from Dodgers Digest. You can find him on Twitter at Allan Yamashige, Yamshige. Allan, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. How about you guys?
Good. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot to talk about because each week it seems like one of our top stories is an injury or something with the Dodgers, and they started out slow last year, and maybe they'll right the ship. But let's just start with the injuries. The Clayton Kershaw deal, it's always been a concern with the back issue. Now they're saying elbow tendonitis this time around, and he's had the low velo this year. What kind of concern should we have with Kershaw?
Right. I mean, it depends how you look at it. So he's never had a real elbow, shoulder, arm kind of injury on his throwing arm pretty much over his entire career. But obviously the back is the main concern. He sounds optimistic, but it's mainly just how you think it affects him moving forward. So it could be a couple of things. Like, obviously, you stated his low velocity on the year. If he's aware of that, of course he is. And if he's trying to, throw it harder, it could be something like that. I know Ken Gernick mentioned something where he was there's some mechanical things that him and Honeycutt, the pitching coach, are going to be working on. So it seems like he's a little off mechanically, which has kind of never come up over the entire course of his career. So, if you want to look at it optimistically, really you can say that hopefully his mechanics are off, causing, a velocity drop, because when you have as many moving parts as these professional pitchers do, a couple things off can obviously drop a fastball 1 tick, 2 ticks. So, you're hoping that maybe that's the cause of that. And when he comes back and, he's back at 93, 94, that would pretty much be the best case scenario.
Just a quick follow-up on Kershaw, and I know we're only 5 weeks into the season, but this is kind of a big year for him in terms of the rest of his career. Do you think he opts out after this year?
I mean, it depends. Obviously, this injury kind of throws a wrench into everything. He's signed through 2020 through 33 million a year.
Yep.
I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't opt out unless there's like a career-ending injury or something, like a season-ending injury as well. I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't opt out. And he can probably easily get a 6-year, $200 million deal, take him through his age 36 season. So I don't really see why he would prefer to test the free agent markets at the age of 32 versus 30.
Yeah, I think it all depends on, like you said, how he does the rest of the year. And I think where he's been at the Dodgers for so long, they've taken care of him. Possibility that they could rip up those 2 years and figure that out in a different way, like you said, maybe till his age 36 season. Let's move to the next guy. This one was a tough one for everyone, I think. Corey Seager, he's had issues over the past couple of years as a young guy with back, and now he's had Tommy John surgery. I mean, obviously he's out for the year. Do you think this may affect him throughout his career with this injury?
If you look at the infielders and some outfielders who've had, elbow issues and ended up having Tommy John, there's only, a select few. Most of them seem to come back all right. I mean, worst case is, he'd be a very large second baseman, but that's, it's always a potential way to keep his bat in the lineup. I just don't simply know enough of how these injuries can affect guys moving forward to say with any certainty on how he would deal with that. So, you can always be hopeful. I mean, if a pitcher can come back throwing 98, 99 from Tommy John, like Walker Buehler, with, command and precision, you would hope that, a guy like Corey Seager can just have enough to make the throw to, first base.
Right.
Yeah, we saw Gleyber Torres is doing just fine after having his Tommy John surgery. So one would think Corey could be, like you said, if not, go play second. Let's talk about Hyun-Jin Ryu. He came back, after being injured a lot last season, kind of a rocky year. Came back starting really well this season. And then the injury he had is just gruesome, ripping the the muscle around the groin off the bone, and that's just painful just to think about, let alone what he had to go through. So he's out for a couple months, and you already have Urias out and some other pitchers we talked about. Just when you're talking Ryu, what's the outlook for him? Because he can't even really stay too active with this, let alone be ready to go when he gets back for like a normal rehab assignment.
Yeah, it's a pretty tricky situation with him. I mean, there's only a handful of guys that are on the 25-man that have contracts that are up after the year. It would be Ryu, it would be Grandal and Forsythe. And so, Ryu's one of those immovable contracts, but now he's going to be out till after the All-Star break. And he's had a very, very extensive injury history. So, with Ryu, you're kind of just always expecting not much and just hopeful that you can actually get some innings out of him. It just so happened that this year he was like incredible in those first, 30 innings or whatever. So that's too bad. But, it's just, it's tough to say. I mean, with a guy like Ryu, he could come back and he could, be the 2.1 ERA that he put up so far this year, or there's a feasible way he doesn't make it back this year. So
Yeah, it's a tough one with Ryu. He's always hurt. The next one was Justin Turner, but it looks like as of yesterday, he's going to be back next week against Miami. And I think that's just such a huge get for you guys, especially with all the injuries going on. The one I'm more interested in, since we know he's coming back, is Rich Hill. And it's been known for the past couple of years since they've signed him that he's had a blister issue. And now he claims, from what I'm read, he claims he's healthy. But his bullpens, he hasn't thrown a ton of curveballs. Roberts said he's not healthy. Now he's supposed to start Sunday last I saw. What's the deal?
He pitched last night.
Oh, did he pitch last night?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Up a little bit.
So much that I've been paying attention. But we'll keep going here with Rich Hill. Is this going to be a problem, like literally, and he's my guy. He grew up 30 minutes down the road from me. Is this going to be a problem, for the rest of his Dodgers career here? I mean, it seems like, especially where he's so dependent on that curveball.
Right. I mean, short answer is probably yes. Yeah. I mean, he's coming up on 40. He hasn't been pitching too much as of late. He's always maybe going to get you 100 innings, 120 innings. The idea is he can get you 100 good innings. So, probably going to be the same moving forward. But he's the kind of guy to say, even if his pitching hand fell off, that he's fine. He's going to make his next start. So his pitch mix has been a little different this year. Not thrown as many curves as usual. So it's something to monitor moving forward. He did come back. They activated him yesterday, and Arizona kind of teed off on him. I think he gave up 3 home runs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was not great. But he's the kind of guy, he's really funky up on the mound. So he probably has his own mechanisms of how he operates and how he works. So it's always tough to look at Rich Hill and expect anything ordinary, because he's just not that type of pitcher at all. So again, optimistic moving forward, but the injury history probably going to stay relevant.
Yeah. Last guy we'll ask you about here, just because, he had that big end of the season last year, the postseason, tongues out, licking bats, entertaining as heck. And, people started to finally embrace Yasiel Puig for the player and the character he was, not just for, like, some people can't accept both with him. And they started to embrace him. And I even enjoy him. And I'm a Giants fan. I enjoy everything about the kind of, when he's at least doing it the right way on the field. I enjoy it. Well, he's had a rocky start to the year. He's hurt now. What are we looking at with Puig going forward? Because you already have a crowded outfield. Is this kind of a get back and trade him, or what are they going to do with Puig?
That's another tough call. So they do have somewhat of a outfield logjam forming. Puig probably should have won the Gold Glove for National League right fielders last year. He didn't, but it's tough to not have him out there almost every day and right, just because of what he can bring to you, no matter what he's doing at the plate. But Jock has been performing the best he has in a while, and Verdugo has been very solid very strong at bats. So, I mean, it depends if Taylor's going to be in center field moving forward with the Seager injury, or if he's going to be at shortstop. There's a lot that has to work itself out. Puig's had a pretty rough year so far before going on the DL. I wrote something a couple weeks ago on him, and he was dealing with a lot of bad luck at the time. And I think he's the kind of guy where that gets to him, and then he starts overcompensating and trying too hard, even though he's hitting the ball well. They're just not dropping. So, again, as with a lot of the guys on the team this year, it's just something to monitor moving forward. I mean, I think you can be hopeful that he can have an offensive season like he did last year, but that's tough. So, you're just hoping for health, and when these guys start getting injured, the log jams kind of go away. So it just kind of plays out, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, they did play that 10-day DL game last year with the whole starting rotation. Don't have that luxury as much this year, unfortunately. But let's get to what they do next in terms of with all the injuries they have. Obviously, it's been Manny Machado rumored there to play shortstop for Seager and move Taylor back to the outfield. But I do know Andrew Friedman, and just coming from the AL East with the Rays, obviously it's a different story given the payrolls. But he's not a guy to give up the farm just to win for 1 year. He's a big picture guy. Do you think that he could make a big deal like that, or is, I guess, punt isn't the word, but just kind of stay the course with what they have, and if they kind of get all the injuries back, then they'll have a chance to at least compete for the division still.
Right. I mean, those Manny Machado rumors were going to essentially right themselves. I mean, you have a superstar shortstop that goes down for the year, and then you have a superstar shortstop that is available for trade. Right. I don't know how much they're looking at Machado. I mean, on paper, it makes a ton of sense. But again, this is essentially the same team, minus obviously Seager now, that won 104 games last year. So it all kind of depends on what the Orioles are trying to get. I mean, if they're looking for maybe the Dodgers' top catching prospect, Kyber Ruiz, who's probably 4 years away from the majors, maybe that makes sense, But if they're looking for Verdugo now, who's contributing, or Buehler, who's contributing to an already kind of injured rotation, giving up guys that are contributing to the team now to make up for it somewhere else doesn't always make the most sense. So, I mean, I would be surprised if they did much in that regard before the trade deadline, because that's kind of the way they like to operate. They like to stay the course and play things as they come to them. But if this team is approaching the All-Star break and they're still maybe 10 games back in the division, maybe it becomes more of a central focusing point.
And you just said it last year, they won 104 games, and they started out really, really slow. And right now, between the injuries and everything, they're having another slow start, and some people are concerned, some aren't. What's the level of concern we're seeing here, and how does it compare to last year's slow start that obviously, like you said, turned out pretty well?
Right. I think last year they had a stretch where they went 43-7 over 50 games. So
that's tough to duplicate.
You can't expect stuff like that. But, through 35 games this year, the current team is 15-20, and last year they were 20-15. So 5 games back of that team, if you want to look at it that way. The concern is real, mainly for the fact that the Diamondbacks are 24-11. I mean, there's no way to avoid that. Essentially, the problem with that is if the Dodgers play 600 baseball from here on out, they'll finish 91-71. And if the Diamondbacks play 540 ball for the rest of the year, they'll finish 92-70. So when you're so far back so early, a lot of it is already kind of out of your control, especially because they've already played each other 11 times this year. They're not going to have those games at the end of the season to, maybe they can get a quick 6 games back on the Diamondbacks. So the concern there is, that's that 6th division title in a row. And yeah, it's they're gonna have to step it up. That's all it is. It's not all in their hands anymore. So
yeah, let's move to Kenley Jansen. Obviously, not the Kenley Jansen that we've seen over the years. The guy's been the best closer in baseball for God knows how long now. And this year, velocity was down at the start of the season. Seems like it's up a little bit. Do we still have some concern with him?
I mean, there's always concern when a pitcher of his caliber is pitching so far below that. But he had a long postseason. He had a long season in general last year. So he pretty much sat out the entire spring training, and spring training is like 4 or 5 weeks, and now 5 weeks into the season, his velocity is kind of ticking up. So if you look at it that way, he's kind of going through his spring training in the season. Now the team's 15-20, so maybe that's to the detriment of the team. But over his last 8 innings, he's put up a 1.1 ERA. He's sitting more 93, 94, where he's sat previously the last 2 years. The swinging strikes, the whiffs, they're not quite back yet, but it's kind of odd. He always fluctuates in that manner, which is surprising. But even last year, he had a little stretch where he was not getting many guys to miss around this time of the year. So, there's concern, but with the velocity and the movement back, just probably a matter of repetition to get that command sharpened up, and that's pretty much where we're at with him.
Okay. Let's talk about another guy that's kind of got off to a slow start, had a career year last year, kind of came out of nowhere. He was a journeyman kind of with between the minors and the pros with Seattle. The Dodgers get him. Chris Taylor, everyone was thinking, okay, he's finally figured it out, late 20s, again off to a slow start. Are there any concerns there? Is this more of a, he was a one-year wonder, or are they okay with him?
Right. With Taylor, you're always going to have at least league average defense and base running. So it's just a matter of if he can keep up, what he can do at the plate. And obviously he's more likely to perform moving forward like he did, when he was a fringe MLB AAA guy. But, last year was nothing. Not everybody can come out and do what he did. So there was some real concern to start the year. He started off like his first 80 plate appearances or so, he had like a 66 weighted runs created, so like 35% below league average. He had like a 235 on base percentage, not great, and he was striking out a ton. He was not walking, but as of his last like 80 plate appearances or so if you split it into like half, he's got a 345 on base percentage, 126 weighted runs created plus. So he's coming into it. One of my colleagues wrote a thing recently for The Athletic on how much he's been striking out, looking kind of an absurd number. 20 of his 40 strikeouts this year have been looking, which leads the league, which is just pretty crazy. He said it's not likely to keep up because he's not really protecting with 2 strikes. But it's been more positive as of late. He looks like he's on his way to another positive year here. So
let's get to the one positive this year, and that's Walker Buehler. Obviously, he's been a top 10 prospect for a couple of years now. The issue here that has been talked about is last year 98 innings was his high. How much could they actually, especially with the injuries that they have in the pitching staff, it's going to be tough to skip this guy if possible. So how many innings do you actually think that they'll let him go?
Right. I mean, they're pretty strict about this kind of stuff. I'd be surprised if he hit more than 140, maybe 150 on the year. I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to manage to do that exactly. Because, say they're sitting 25-10 right now, it's easy. He's probably not even on the major league roster. But 15-20, 9 games back, he might be your best starter right now. How do you not let him go out there? It's easy to say that you need to save his innings for a postseason run, but if your main concern right now is making sure you can make the playoffs, you can't really factor that in. You got to get those innings now. So that's a tough one to manage for them.
Yeah, it'll be one of those games of you don't want to go the Nationals like they did with Steven Strasburg. You want to kind of maybe skip a start here or there. Maybe when you have a healthy rotation, you move them back to the bullpen for a little bit. They're going to have to play a nice game, like toe the fine line when it comes to Walker Buehler, because that talent is so legit. It's pretty crazy. To not have him out there be not good. But Allan, thanks for joining us, man. There's a lot of great information on the Dodgers, and I have a feeling we'll have to be chatting again later this year because with my luck as a Giants fan and the talent level they have, because Mo can attest and the other listeners can, I did still pick them to win the West, and they still are a heavy favorite. I'm a realist. I see how it goes. They are talented, and I love Cody Bellinger, so I can get behind all that. But everybody, check him out on Twitter at Allan Yamashige, Yamashige, and he does his work over at Dodgers Digest. Allan, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Al.